Bishop,
Welcome.
go to the end, would you please?
Oh, go to the end. Oh,
Yep.
okay. All right. Oh, I said that's where you put that.
Is this mine? Is it? Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I didn't have a chance to talk to you earlier. I'm Justine Little, and I'm the Director of Communications here at the Diocese. And I thank you very much for joining us this morning. I apologize for the delay in getting to you, but again, thank you so much for being here. You're going to hear from each of the speakers this morning who have prepared statements. And following the statements, they're going to entertain questions. And I'll come back and explain that once they're finished. Bishop is going to begin with a prayer in a little minute, but what I would like to do is just go through what they're going to talk about so you have an idea of what they're going to talk about. Bishop is going to do a welcome and opening statement, and then Chancellor Bastian, who's the Chancellor for the Diocese, is going to talk about the Defenbach and Associates investigative engagement that we undertook. And then we're going to finish off with Father Girardi, who is going to talk about the disclosure list. And then we'll go back to Bishop, and he'll just do some closing remarks, and then we'll take questions. So it is my pleasure to introduce Bishop David Riggin.
Thank you, Justine, and thanks to all of you. Appreciate your being here this morning. I'd like to begin with a little prayer, a prayer for healing victims of abuse. God of endless love, ever caring, ever strong, always present, always just. You gave your only Son to save us by the blood of his cross. Gentle Jesus, shepherd of peace, join to your own suffering the pain of all who have been hurt in body, mind, and spirit by those who betrayed the trust placed in them. Hear our cries as we agonize over the harm done to our brothers and sisters. Breathe wisdom into our prayers, soothe restless hearts with hope, steady shaken spirits with faith. Show us the way to justice and wholeness, enlightened by truth and enfolded in your mercy. Holy Spirit, comforter of hearts, heal your people's wounds and transform our weaknesses. Grant us courage and wisdom, humility and grace, so that we may act with justice and find peace in you. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen. So I will begin with the opening statement and then share the table with the other two who are here present with me, Tammy and Father John Girardi. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's been several months now since we met the last time, and I pledged to keep you informed on developments related to clergy abuse and my 7 action steps to accountability, which are here before you. As you remember, in late September, the Diocese of Green Bay entered into an agreement with the independent investigative firm Defenbach and Associates of Kaufman, Texas, to conduct an outside review of the files of all diocesan priests and deacons. Defenbach and Associates made several visits to the diocese throughout the fall, and the findings of their review were made to the Diocesan Independent Review Board. We refer to that as the IRB, and the Chancellor just before Christmas. Tammy Bastian is the Diocesan Chancellor here next to me, and she will speak more about this shortly. The IRB reviewed the findings, deliberated as a group, and following thoughtful consideration, recommended that I release the names of those diocesan clergy who have a substantial allegation of sexual abuse of a minor in accordance with the Charter for the Protection of Children and Young People. That's the document published by the Bishops' Conference in 2002. After thorough discussion and prayerful contemplation, I'm here to announce that I'm releasing the names of these men today. The names will appear on our diocesan website at 12 noon, and they will also be included in the packet of information you will receive at the conclusion of this briefing. Father John Girardi, Vicar for Canonical Services, is here to provide additional information regarding this list. The release of these names may open up old wounds and may create new hurt. For this, I'm profoundly sorry. But I want to recognize the victim survivors for their strength over the years in coming forward to tell their stories. The hurt they endured at the hands of their perpetrators cannot be undone. I can apologize, but more importantly, I need to show them through action that we are being open and addressing this issue head-on. My priorities, as outlined in my 7 action steps to accountability, remain. First of all, to continue to improve our pastoral care, concern, and efforts to accompany victims of abuse in their journey of healing. To provide as many ways as possible for those who have been victimized to come forward without fear and to share their story of sexual abuse. We need to know as fully as possible the harm that was done so we can offer care to victims and ensure that no perpetrators remain in ministry. The victim survivors and their families are my greatest concern. To all the victims and survivors and their family members, please know that you will be in my prayers, especially during these coming days. If you are someone who has suffered with your pain in silence, I invite you to reach out to the Office of Safe Environment or Catholic Charities or other mental health professionals to share your story. With the disclosure of this list of clergy, a new chapter begins. A chapter that is about openness and a chapter that can set a course toward healing for all those who have been hurt by the Church. I pledge my continued support to those I have personally been walking with, and I invite anyone else who wants to talk to us to please reach out. I'd like to now introduce Tammy Bastian, the Chancellor for the Diocese of Green Bay. Tammy coordinated the Deffenbaugh and Associates engagement and will speak now to that part of this preparation. Tammy?
Thank you, Bishop, and good morning to all. As Bishop shared, my name is Tammy Bastian, and I am the Chancellor here at the Diocese of Green Bay. The role of the Chancellor in the Diocese is to prepare and preserve documents, issue reports and official notices, and also to ensure that record keeping and documents of the diocese are properly organized, stored in the diocesan archives, and to work with church and civil matters across the diocese. Because of the focus on records management, I was asked to explore and coordinate the engagement with the firm Deffenbaugh and Associates. Deffenbaugh and Associates was selected based on their recommendation of the Independent Review Board. The reason they were selected was because of their experience and their investigative background. Similar investigations were conducted by them across the nation. An agreement was then signed by Deffenbaugh and Associates on September 24th to conduct a thorough review of the diocesan priest and deacon files for the purpose of independently identifying any allegation of sexual abuse of a minor. Full and complete access was given the investigators upon their arrival to identify, review, examine the personnel records, and ultimately prepare and present the results to the Independent Review Board and myself. The engagement with Deffenbaugh and Associates was extensive. They traveled here twice in October and once in November to complete the process. The final results were presented on December 13th to the Independent Review Board and myself. Following the presentation, the Independent Review Board spent time reviewing the findings, deliberating as a group, and following thoughtful consideration, recommending that Bishop Ricken release the list of diocesan clergy with a substantiated allegation of sexual abuse of a minor. That will happen today. The independent work of Deffenbaugh and Associates was thorough and concurred with the Independent Review Board's internal findings regarding the number of diocesan priests who have abused. I want to be clear. This list includes diocesan priests. Diocesan priests are directly accountable to the bishop. Priests who are part of a religious order, such as the Norbertines or Franciscans, are accountable to their superiors within the order. Therefore, like any allegation the diocese receives, we encourage the person making that allegation to contact law enforcement authorities. Additionally, this information is immediately turned over to the religious order, which is also responsible for contacting authorities and investigating the priest. The religious orders hold and are responsible for the personnel files of the priests. Religious orders have been notified, and it is have been strongly recommended that they complete a full review of their own priest files with the objective to release the names of the priests publicly who have had a substantiated allegation of sexual abuse of a minor. Like Bishop, I believe we must always be mindful of the victims and survivors, their families, and hold them in our prayers. While my work here as a chancellor is very task-orientated, it is in serving others as Christ would where I find my greatest strength. At the end of the day, it is the dignity of every person that matters. I would now like to introduce Father Girardi, Vicar for Canonical Services, who will walk us through the information related to the release of the names. Father?
Thank you, Tammy, and good morning. My name is Father John Girardi, and my role here at the diocese is as Vicar for Canonical Services. I also fulfill other ministerial roles, and for many years I served as a parish priest. In my current ministry, I have the responsibility of undertaking internal investigations of priests accused of the sexual abuse of a minor. In this regard, the list that will be released today comprises the names of priests of the Diocese of Green Bay against whom there is one or more substantiated allegations of the sexual abuse of a minor. The Diocese of Green Bay follows the directives of the 2002 Charter for the Protection of Young People and Children, written by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. All allegations received by the diocese are taken seriously and investigated as thoroughly as possible. However, we do not work alone. Additionally, this work is reviewed and confirmed by the work of an independent review board. All substantiated allegations are immediately reported to the district attorney or other law enforcement of the county where the alleged abuse had taken place. A word now about substantiation. An allegation is categorized as substantiated when, based upon the facts and circumstances of the case, there is a reasonable cause to suspect that the sexual abuse of a minor has occurred. This is comprised as follows. First, there is a certainty on the part of the accuser that the abuse took place. This would be a first-party accusation. The individual himself or herself comes forward. Second, that the allegation is internally consistent regarding a time, a place, and a date. For example, the priest who is accused was indeed assigned to the parish at the time that he is accused of having abused. Third, that the other facts surrounding the accuser's claims appear to be accurate. For example, the details surrounding the accusation are consistent. The name of the church's secretary from 40 years ago is true. The color of the furniture in the priest's house was accurate. The priest's demeanor at that time is well known. Those are just some factors. It is important to state that there are currently no known priests serving in active ministry in the Diocese of Green Bay who have had a substantiated allegation of the sexual abuse of a minor against them. Since 1906, the ordination date of the priest with the earliest documented allegation, 47 priests have had a substantiated allegation of the sexual abuse of a minor made against them. A total of 630 priests have been ordained for service in the Diocese of Green Bay during that same period of time. Additionally, there are 16 priests and 2 deacons accused of the sexual abuse of a minor who, after investigation and review by the Independent Review Board, were either exonerated or the allegation against them unsubstantiated. It is important to note that inclusion on this list does not by itself mean that the accused priest has been found guilty of a crime or liable for any civil claim. In some, but not all, cases, an accused priest was tried and found guilty or liable by civil authorities. In every case, however, the diocese conducted an investigation based upon church law, which often resulted in the priest being permanently removed from ministry. Many of the substantiated allegations were made decades after the alleged abuse had taken place, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. making it very difficult sometimes to conduct a complete civil or church investigation. Also, because most of the allegations were made many years after the civil statute of limitations had passed, the civil authorities were often unable to fully investigate the matter or to bring charges. Some of the allegations were made after the accused priest had died and therefore did not have the opportunity to respond to the accusation. The clergy disclosure list will be released in 2 sections today. The first section, Section 1, contains the name of 37 priests of the Diocese of Green Bay against whom a substantiated allegation of the sexual abuse of a minor was received and investigated while the priest was alive, or against whom multiple substantiated allegations were received and investigated after the priest had died. Section 2 contains the name of 10 priests of the Diocese of Green Bay against whom a single substantiated allegation of the sexual abuse of a minor was received after the priest's death. Please note today that the number of 47 will be slightly different in the release. And the reason the number will be less than 47 is because there is pending further legal review on cases. I want to echo Bishop Ricken's thoughts regarding victims, survivors, and families being of our greatest concern. I, too, will be holding and have been holding the victims, their families, their survivors in my prayers, along with all those who have been impacted by the release of this information today. It is important for us to remember that in the midst of all of this, a child was hurt. Children were harmed, and this must never happen again. I turn this over now to Bishop Ricken for his closing comment.
Thank you, Tammy and Father Girardi, for your contributions today and for all the work that you've put into this. My friends, we can't change the past. We can only learn from it and pledge to never repeat it. I pledge as the shepherd of all the souls in the 16 counties that make up the Diocese of Green Bay that we will practice openness. We will continue to turn over all substantiated allegations of sexual abuse of a minor to the proper civil authorities for investigation, and we continue a zero-tolerance policy of any abuse reported. We will walk with all victims, survivors known today, and those who may come forward in the days and the weeks ahead. The Victim Assistance Team, led by Deacon Dan Wagnitz, will walk with victims, survivors on their personal journey towards healing. The diocese is vigilant and committed to the protection of children and vulnerable adults. This is why the diocese requires all clergy, employees, and volunteers in every parish, school, and diocesan office to complete mandatory background checks and training on keeping children safe. The instructions on reporting an allegation are posted on the website and included in your packets today. Change can only happen when we are fully aware of the circumstances surrounding sexual abuse. Come and tell us your story. We want to walk with you on your journey to health and healing. The action steps to accountability are on the poster boards behind me as a constant reminder of this pledge that we have made. We have accomplished many of these steps already, and I will continue to work on moving them forward as they are not one-time fixes. I am pleased today to emphasize actions that we will take very soon here in the diocese in the weeks ahead. Number 1, Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Green Bay, in conjunction with Trauma Recovery Associates of Portage, Michigan, will conduct 2 workshops for area parish personnel, spiritual caregivers, and mental health professionals and practitioners on January 31st and February 1st. In your media packet, you will find a press release on these workshops, along with a brochure that explains the sites for the trainings and the times. I invite all news organizations to join us on one of these days to see the real work that is taking place to educate parish caregivers and mental health professionals and providers regarding the trauma model of Dr. Colin Ross. Offering training free of charge to area professionals is an initial step the diocese is taking to help care for individuals who have suffered sexual or other types of abuse in childhood. Again, this is a first step, but the plan is for other trainings and workshops to be held so we are well equipped in the diocese to care for those victims and survivors of clergy abuse and other childhood trauma. 2, we will continue and will be hosting our healing prayer services for victims and survivors this April, which we do every year and have for 6 or 7 years. The dates and times are being finalized. We will send a press release prior to the services with all the details. If you can help us spread the word, we'd be very grateful. Special retreats hosted by the Journey of Hope group, which has been a tremendous help to us in recovery, will continue to be offered as well during this year. Life is a gift. We are charged by the Creator to protect it and to foster its growth wherever possible. As individuals made in the image and likeness of God, we are challenged each day to pursue life over death, potential over limitation, and light over darkness. I want to thank you all for coming today. I know this was a great deal of information to take in, and you're going to be given a lot of information as well. I cannot mention enough how deeply sorry I am for having to reopen this wound for victims and survivors and their families, but I'm also grateful that there's now more of an opening for others who may have been hurt and may need help in some way to come forward, either to the diocese directly or to some other healthcare professional or someone else who could assist them. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn this back to Justine now for the follow-up.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you all very much. I know that this was a lot of information to take in. Before we begin the question and answer part of the briefing, I'd just like to share with you the resources that are going to be in the packet. There is going to be the press release about this event today. There's also going to be the press release regarding the trauma associate workshops, as well as a brochure that goes with that. There's going to be a listing of all the mental health crisis numbers by county. There's also going to be the compass insert piece that Bishop did initially to introduce his action steps. That will be in there. There's a lot of great information in there. And then there's also the PDF files of all of the listening session question and answer pieces that we also did within the compass. So lots of information. If you have questions, check there first. And if you can't find the answer there, or if we haven't answered the question here this morning, go ahead and give me a call, okay? So, for the question and answer session, we're gonna just spend about 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes or so. And when you ask your question the first time, would you please just state your name, the media outlet that you're from, and then direct your question to whichever panelist or to the panelists as a whole. Thank you so much, and who's got the first question? Raise your hand.
Sarah Thompson from Channel 2. I don't know if it would be for you, Reverend, or for Bishop. I think you mentioned how far back these go
Yes.
as far as time period. How many parishes are involved, or how is this more in one parish than in others, or how widespread, I guess, is it?
So certainly some parishes are more affected than others. With the number of victims that have been impacted by this is 98. And some of those victims are in certain parishes. There are some parishes where a priest served, and there's never been a history of victimization. So it varies from parish to parish.
But all the parishes are covered by this, right?
All of the parish, yes. Currently,
157 parishes. Yeah.
But not in every.
Correct.
No.
Yes.
Paul Service from the Press Gazette. You kind of made a call for other, Bishop made a call for other people to come forward, talk to you. Is that a recognition that this investigation might not have revealed all of the actual suspected reverends in the course of this, or?
Well, Paul, I think what it is, it's giving people permission to know that they'll be properly cared for. There may be other people out there that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. Everything we know, we're putting in this. But for things we don't know about, if somebody else needs this in their process of healing, we're open to listen to them and to assist them as best we can.
Given that Bishop Zubik back in 2006, I believe, there was a change in the records-keeping policies that involved destruction of personnel records that were a year or more older. I think was part of the policy. And so how did that affect this entire ordeal, and is that policy still in place?
Yes, so the policy for clergy records is a year after the clergy has died, we do the records retention on that particular file, which is maintaining the historical and biographical information, but we do not save anything else. So that was the policy you're discussing right now. And so with the Defenbaugh review, we were able to with the other, we have record schedules for every area, and we were able to, within the review, have all of the information that we would need to be able to affirm and confirm the final list and release of the names. So we did have the information necessary. While it may not have been in the deceased clergy file, we did have records and documents kept appropriately, and we were able to compile that in order to validate this release of the names and have enough information there.
The confirmations that you're talking about, though, or I don't use that word, but that was done recently. We're not talking about historical confirmation of the acts. We're talking about a recent confirmation of the acts.
What regarding confirmation of the act? So evidence, or
You referred to ones that are substantiated. I
Right.
guess is the word I want, not confirm, but substantiated.
Right.
right? So, for example, there we have the work that has been done by our predecessors. For example, in 2002, when files were reviewed, that work of our predecessors still exists. And when they had reviewed the files in 2002, they were able to highlight priests who, at that time, had a substantiated allegation of sexual abuse against them. So from that historical work dating back to 2002 and before, we were able to compile the current list that we have today.
So that stuff would not have been purged, I guess, as part of the normal record-keeping elimination stuff that we talked about, I guess, is what I'm ultimately asking.
Right, there wasn't, we were able to find the information in sources that we had available. So, yes.
Mark Leland from Fox 11. Bishop, can you give me a sense, when you signed on with this investigative group to conduct this review of your files, what was your expectation? Did you think that they would come back with what they did come back with, the 47 names?
Well, the whole intention of inviting them in was to check and see if we had done our due diligence on all of this. That we have a lot of background in this as far as our files go, but they were very helpful in reviewing everything. They pointed out some things that we needed to further visit about and look into. But it was very, very affirming of the work that had been done, but they also did a very thorough review, so some things we might have missed, they pointed out. We had to take all that had to be taken to the independent review board. That was all reviewed by all of them. So, I think it's been very helpful, very helpful.
And the 47 names, were you aware of these 47 prior to this? They just confirmed it?
John?
Yes, so the names that were on the list were very close to the names that we were already aware of, almost to a name, that there were no surprises that Defenbaugh came up with. There were issues of we had to look into the file to see exactly what the issue was. Was it indeed sexual abuse of a minor or not? But there were no surprises in the results. They, by and large, confirmed the work we had already done. And we were grateful for that as an independent group to confirm our work.
And is there any current pending litigation currently in the process in the court system or the police involving any of these 47 priests?
No.
I'm not aware of any pending legal litigation regarding these 47 regarding sexual abuse of a minor. There is not.
But you had said earlier that 47 is not going to be matched by what we see in the paper.
Correct.
Because a couple were tied up, I thought you said.
Yes, so there's a legal review going on over some of the names, but there's not litigation regarding sexual abuse caused by that priest.
Can you split that here for me? I'm not
Sorry.
sure what you said.
So some of the priests on this list contest the fact that their name is on the list.
So they're bringing some kind of legal action, nothing developed yet, but some kind of legal attention to the fact that their name is on the list.
But only a handful, 2, 3,
Two.
or something.
Very small number.
So you reached out to all the priests that you could.
Yes. There, on the list of 47, 15 of the priests are still living. The remainder have died.
Will any of that information then be sent to the district attorneys or whomever, law enforcement to investigate this then, or do you hand over what you have?
All of the 47 names have been handed over to the district attorney, in many cases years ago. So law enforcement is aware of these cases, and the diocese over the past years, certainly since 2002 and before, would always, if it was substantiated, hand it over to district attorney.
You mentioned 16 plus 2 deacons that are exonerated of the state. They are not part of the 47.
Correct,
That's
correct,
over and above.
correct.
Just to clarify, the substantiated allegations, they were in the files as substantiated allegations. They're not just now becoming a substantiated allegation by the diocese.
No, so the facts date back perhaps to the 1970s, 1980s, before that, 1960s, that at that time it was in the file, and that the substantiation of it was believed at that time and then has been confirmed subsequently, primarily through the work of the Independent Review Board and now Deffenbaugh and Associates.
And you're saying also that those substantiated allegations were all passed along to the proper legal authority?
All 47 priests on the list, where their name was passed on to the district attorney of the county where the alleged abuse had taken place.
Bishop Zubik had resisted releasing the names. I think it was only 35 at the time that it came up after some kind of review that was done some years
Yes.
ago. But he had declined to review the names. One of the reasons he cited was because some of these guys are dead, they can't even defend themselves. And so philosophically, something has changed.
Yeah, I think what's changed is we see the long-term effects of clergy sex abuse. Sometimes people are dealing with this for themselves for years. We also have found, too, that with parents of children who have been abused, sometimes they've been put down by their own parishioners who don't believe them, because oftentimes people in this, who have this affliction, whatever these, who are predators, they're very accomplished, they're very smooth, they're very compelling, they have a lot of followers, people interested, and that's kind of a trait. And so they have a lot of friends within the parish. So when somebody comes and accuses their pastor, not so much now, but particularly several years ago, they don't believe the people, they don't believe the families. So in doing this, we're hoping that the families, too, will have a sense of relief that now at least the parishioners will see that we were telling the truth. So there's a lot of this, this type of evil is very systemic. It affects everybody. And it's not just in the Catholic Church, not just Catholic priests who do this sort of thing, but we have had a problem. Our problem was really bad in the 60s and 70s, and that's been going down ever since. So if you get a graph, we're not quite ready to reveal a graph that's very accurate, but the trend is definitely there. In the 60s and 70s, this was a big problem. It's been going down ever since, especially since 1985, when the bishops put their first protocol together, and 2002, when the Child and Youth Protection was established. It's of minimal reports across the entire country since 2002.
When was the last substantiated allegation among those 47?
So the most recent case, which was very much in the public domain, was in 2016. Before that, and I don't have the exact numbers with me, but before that, the earliest, before that was in the early 90s. So in 2016, in that case, we immediately acted, removed the priest from ministry, reported it to the district attorney immediately, and civil action was taken against him, and now he is permanently out of ministry.
Out of the priesthood.
The priesthood.
Yeah.
Hi, Jennifer Naza, NBC 26. As we've heard from you guys, this has been going on a long time. So what do you guys have to say directly to these victims of these terrible actions? You know, what do you have to say to them? Because unfortunately, some of them, you know, are disappointed in the church and what has transpired from this. So what do you want to say to those people affected?
Well, I would like to say that we believe you. I've listened to and accompanied quite a few victims over my time here as the bishop and before this as well. And we believe the victims when they come forward and tell us their story. I believe them. There was only one that I didn't. And so I think just being able to hear the story helps them. This is not something that's easy to get over. You can't predict this with psychological testing, from what I understand, that people will behave in this fashion. So, but now that we're all much more aware of characteristics and traits of people who abuse and hurt children, that's going to help everybody to take mutual responsibility. By the time it gets to me in my office, it's maybe way too late. So for the victims, I want to say we want to help in the healing process if you want us to. If you don't want to come to the diocese, that's okay, but we're helping to provide mental health professionals in the area with training too. You see, when somebody from the clergy does this, it hurts a person's understanding and love of God, because the priest is associated with God. So that's what's unique about it and devastating. And I've listened to people. It's very hard to get over. Nobody has a magic bullet, but there are more and more assistance coming from like this trauma recovery group, which is run by a priest and a whole group of people who try to help people bridge this gap and move toward healing. So that's the main motivation behind releasing these names. And if there's anybody there that has been hurt, that just now is coming to deal with it. Sometimes people repress it for decades. Then all of a sudden they realize there can be a theory called repressed memories that usually is not real reliable, but for people who have pushed it down, I just talked to somebody the other day, pushed it down and wants to come and get it behind them and start to heal. That's what we want to emphasize for the next number of years, however long it takes.
What does this release do in terms of opening the door to potential liability for diocese? I mean, is this new information to any victims that might be going, well, I had this, I have repressed it, that guy whose name is now there?
Yeah, so we don't know where that will go. The reason a bishop has decided to release these names is, first of all, to validate the victims who have already come forward, that we believe them. And the second is to, if there are any other victims out there, that this will give them, hopefully, the courage to come forward and tell their story. And the third is so that to be truly transparent, as we're being called to be, not just as the church, but all entities in society today. Transparency is a very important thing in our culture today, and rightly so. We want to live up to that. I think another reason, too, is that we want to call attention to the reality that the sexual abuse of minors is a societal scourge, and that it is amply true that this happens in schools, sporting events, in families, and in the church. And so we're hoping to be leading the culture for recovery in this way. That's our hope. How people react to that, all we can do is walk with them, as Jesus would have us do.
The initial investigation launched in September was, I mean, that's mirrors a lot of what's going on nationwide. But was there any specific U.S. Bishops Association directive or anything like that behind that?
Well, you know what happened was the Pennsylvania report that came out, which was devastating, disgusting, awful, the things that had happened. And that's the nature of this type of sin and crime. And people were very, very upset because they had presupposed that this was taken care of. Well, much of this activity that's described in that report is way before 2002. Even that report, but it's buried someplace, says that the bishops have done a good job since 2002 getting a handle on this problem. And it says that in that report. But that was a wake-up call to people saying, oh my gosh, that this would happen in the church of all places, and rightly so. So the bishops are very disgruntled by this as well. Our people are upset about it, and I did 7 listening sessions, and some people were very, very angry. I'm really glad I did that, because the questions they asked are superb, and I answered all those as best I could over 4 inserts in the compass, and those are readily available, those answers to the questions. But the questions were superb. And there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of reflection going on in our church and our community. This, as I think Father Girardi said, this is a problem that's not just in the Catholic Church. So,
But is it your perception, I guess, that other dioceses are taking a similar?
oh yeah, Paul, is it first name Paul? 50 dioceses have already done this. Yeah, revealed the names.
Others in Wisconsin?
Milwaukee has already done it quite a few years ago, and the others are considering it now. I know they're studying it.
But you don't know whether the Norbertines, for example, have launched anything similar. You just, I think, called upon others generically that they should do it, but you don't know whether there's any such thing going on here.
I do know that the Norbertines are having their files reviewed, just like we did with Deffenbaugh. I don't know who they're asking to review it, but an outside source to come in and review their files. Beyond that, I don't know. I haven't heard a report from them.
Aaron Taylor, Channel 5. So moving forward, if this does make some other people kind of come out and speak out, is the process going to be the same for those, if future victims do speak out?
Well, I can tell you this, there's been some changes here internally. We're going to have now a victims assistance team available of 3 or 4 of our people who work here and others who work in parishes. We're really focusing more in the diocese on teamwork and cross-functional teamwork. So that's a priority for our whole diocese. So our culture is changing quite a bit. We're in that process. But this is one of the beneficiaries that we're able to work together to help others a lot better than we used to. Not just one person who has a responsibility for something as large as this. So hopefully our response, and if it isn't, people should let us know, our response is quick, compassionate, and really listening to the needs of the people who present themselves. Because we know that we have to win back trust, and we're really working hard at that. But we also want to equip the local community, have community impact by helping others who are not from our church to understand this problem for us, and to be able to help people that even our own people may not want to come to us, but may want to go to them to get the help they need.
You mentioned winning back trust. During the course of this, have you noticed any change in church membership or in church donations to the church because of this negative?
I don't think we really have that much. I got a lot of personal letters from people. I tried to answer every one of those. I don't know if I got them all, but I got quite a few. People want to know that they're heard and that they're responded to. So that seems to have helped. Some of that, the listening sessions helped. So far, there hasn't been a huge decline in mass attendance, other than what has been going and negative trending over the years. But other than that, there's no big blip on the radar screen about that. And the income seems to be holding its own as well. So.
People want us to get the information out. In my travels throughout the diocese as a priest, people are hurt, they're sad, they're angry, but they want us to be transparent and to get this stuff out. And that's why we're doing what we're doing today.
Yeah, I heard that over and over in the listening sessions. Get it out, Bishop, get it out. And is it perfect? Probably not, but we're doing the best we can, so.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming
Thank you.
today.
Thanks, everybody.